It all began in Mamoru's third year of high school, right outside a shop called Books Mayoto. Inside, Shizuno Mizushima all of a sudden froze when something caught her eye, and embarrassment hit her at once. Even days later, the memory came back to Shizuno so hard it left her speechless, like it still refused to let go. She had found a flyer for a newly opened maid cafe, and someone on it was calling Mamoru by name. On the way to school, another girl greeted Shizuno brightly, just as Shizuno admitted she had accidentally brought that troubling item with her. Once the disciplinary committee started checking bags and fixing uniforms, panic surged through Shizuno, because the questionable item was still on her. The other girl spotted it and questioned her, and Shizuno realized too late that she had never taken it out. Trying to save face, the girl nervously blurted out that they had to be careful, even if the excuse barely held. A boy then casually said both girls would be adults soon anyway, and a shameless remark left them burning. While the other students waved goodbye and left, Shizuno stayed behind, still reeling from everything that had just happened. Still red-faced, Shizuno held up the questionable item, and Mamoru could only stare back in uneasy silence. Mamoru cautiously pressed her for an explanation, clearly unable to grasp what she was trying to show him. Shizuno forced herself to nod along, but her face stayed bright red as she struggled to act normal. She hurriedly insisted it was not what it looked like and admitted she had only been checking it because she was confused. Then Shizuno introduced herself properly as Shimizu Azusa, Mamoru's childhood friend from the same apartment complex, while explaining that both of them had lost a parent young. Mamoru asked if she had work that day, and when she learned he might be late because of a mountain of deliveries, she decided she would eat without him. The narration made it clear that awkwardness aside, they had grown up side by side, shared the same hospital and neighborhood, and their families had long been deeply connected. Later, someone offered a brief thank you outside a place called Hana, and the story finally pulled away from the school embarrassment. The scene drifted back toward Books Makoto, tying the present discomfort to the shop where Shizuno had first found the flyer. Inside the store, Mamoru casually mentioned he had just come back by the front route, hinting that the truth behind the flyer might finally come out. Mamoru explained that the owner of Snack Hana had told him to contact her after closing, then casually asked Azusa's mother how old he was, revealing that this only happened because her father had been unusually open-minded. Azusa's mother then directly asked when Mamoru would turn 18, making the flyer feel even more suspicious. Mamoru right away understood as she reminded him that tomorrow was the same day as her daughter's birthday, then bluntly added that Azusa had at least not gone astray under his influence. She went on to tell Mamoru that once he was finally old enough, he would be allowed behind the curtain, and the adults-only meaning became impossible to miss. Later that night, Mamoru made his way back to the apartment complex. Azusa noticed his pleased expression right away and demanded to know why he looked so happy. Caught completely off guard, Mamoru awkwardly covered by saying he had only folded the laundry for her aunt. Her mother welcomed Mamoru home, asked if he would stay for dinner, and mentioned that Azusa had already heated the bath, as if he belonged there. Azusa softly thanked Mamoru for working so hard and urged him to bathe first, since he looked completely worn out. Mamoru refused, saying hunger had already won, so he would eat first, and Azusa quietly went on ahead. As dinner continued, Azusa answered Mamoru's question and told him they were having cabbage rolls tonight. Mamoru thanked her mother for the meal and admitted it looked delicious, and he meant it. Azusa's mother warmly praised Azusa as a good girl who helped around the house so much, and Mamoru quietly agreed. Then she hinted that because Mamoru and Azusa had always been together since childhood, he might have failed to notice something important about her. Still chewing, Mamoru looked up in confusion and asked what she meant. Azusa's mother teased that if he ended up with a girl like Azusa, he would be an incredibly lucky man, and Mamoru instantly turned red. Just then, as Azusa stepped out after her bath, Mamoru hurriedly pushed back and insisted that was impossible because she was far too proper, though he added that her seriousness was still better than being sloppy and careless. Azusa appeared in a fresh shirt and politely thanked him for the compliment, catching Mamoru completely defenseless. Flustered, Mamoru gave up and accepted her explanation that she had gotten sweatier than expected and borrowed one of his shirts. Then Azusa's mother cheerfully reminded them that tomorrow was both of their birthdays and suggested they all go out to eat, asking Mamoru what he wanted. Mamoru modestly said the usual meals were already plenty, but when pressed about his birthday dinner, he shyly admitted he wanted something with more meat than usual, and Azusa right away agreed to make it special. Even with the warm mood still holding, Azusa quietly wondered if her father would come home that day. Mamoru tried to reassure her that her father would never miss her birthday, but Azusa flatly reminded him that he had forgotten it before. Then she added that he was probably with another woman and would likely only come back tomorrow, and the room instantly went heavy. That bitter line dragged the story straight into the memory of her mother's funeral, where the pain still clung to everything. At the service, grieving women cried over Makoto's death, crushed by sorrow and shock. Others bitterly complained that she had died before promised plans could happen, exposing ugly selfishness in the middle of mourning. Standing beside Azusa, Mamoru found himself thinking he once believed losing a father would be far more tragic, while she remained eerily calm next to him. Later, in front of the Sakurai apartment, a younger Azusa timidly asked Mamoru if she could stay there for the night. Mamoru agreed at once, explained that she had cried herself to sleep from exhaustion, and quietly asked where Obasan was while deciding they should let Azusa rest. Mamoru softly said he would make room for Azusa, and she apologized just as softly as they settled down under the weight of the funeral. Back to back in the dark, neither of them could sleep, both carrying pain they could not put into words. When Mamoru asked if she was alright, Azusa admitted her father had never truly felt present to her, then bitterly said he had probably spent more time with the other woman than with her. Hearing that, Mamoru told Azusa not to force herself to stay strong and assured her it was okay to cry, and for a moment, she said nothing. In that heavy silence, Mamoru gently told her goodnight. Morning arrived, and the story pulled away from that painful night and back toward school. As they walked together, Mamoru said she could have taken a week of bereavement leave, but Azusa answered that staying home would not have changed anything. Then, Azusa revealed she had been agonizing over what to do with her father's store and wondered if she should take over running it herself. Mamoru stopped cold and asked if she was serious. Azusa admitted she did not think she could handle it as well as he did, but said he had left it to her, so she felt she had to face it. While they walked, Azusa reasoned that since she had grown up surrounded by books, maybe she could do something after all. But Mamoru knew that was not the real issue. The two reached Books Makoto, and the familiar storefront forced Azusa to confront the responsibility she had just spoken aloud. At the entrance, Azusa called Mamoru over and showed him she had found the key. Caught off guard, Mamoru asked whether she had ever gone to the other side of the curtain. Azusa said no, because she had not been there in years, then reminded him that only adults were allowed in that section. Inside the silent shop, nostalgia hit Mamoru first, and then he carefully asked Azusa something important. He clarified that he meant the curtained area in the back, and Azusa confirmed that was exactly what she meant. Then Azusa all of a sudden declared that they were both 18 now, so they could go in, and before Mamoru could stop her, she was already moving. Mamoru panicked and tried to call after Azusa, but what he saw next left him stunned and deeply embarrassed. Surrounded by restricted merchandise, Azusa stared at one item in confusion and asked what it was. Mamoru stood frozen beside Azusa in the adults-only section, and the shock of being there with her made the beginning of his 18th spring feel far too overwhelming. Flustered but trying to stay composed, Mamoru awkwardly explained that the strange item, and everything around them, were age-restricted products. With the curtain sealing off that forbidden space, Mamoru bitterly realized that if Azusa truly understood none of this, then running the store would be even harder than she imagined. Azusa looked over the shelves and innocently asked whether Mamoru had known all along what kind of store this really was. Mamoru admitted he had known, and Azusa right away demanded to know why he had kept it from her. He told her she was probably the only one who had been left in the dark, while Azusa protested in disbelief that everyone else knew she was the daughter of a man who ran this kind of shop. Face-burning, Azusa asked what Mamoru had told people, and he answered that he had simply called it a bookstore. That made the storefront memory hit even harder, because the sign itself openly advertised DVDs, goods, and games, proof that Books Makoto had never been an ordinary bookstore. Then a girl matter-of-factly identified the place by the highway as a restricted shop and casually asked what about it, showing how normal that truth was to everyone else. In that memory, a younger Mamoru threw up his hands and desperately insisted he had never even gone there, exposing how defensive he had always been about Books Makoto. Another classmate casually mentioned that even the head of the disciplinary committee had shown interest in that kind of shop, proving just how widely the store's reputation had spread. Back in the present, Azusa flushed with shock and asked if she really had been the only one who never knew. Mamoru awkwardly told her that now she understood why nobody had ever truly thought of Books Makoto as just a normal bookstore. As she slumped in disbelief, Mamoru admitted that calling it a bookstore was not entirely wrong, but he knew that was basically hiding the truth. With her face buried in her arms, Azusa was asked whether she still thought she could run the store after learning what it really was, and all she could say was that she did not know. Then, Azusa lifted her head, looked toward the storefront sign again, and silently confronted the reality her father had left behind. The rows of shelves stretched out before her in uneasy silence, and the size of it all of a sudden felt crushing. Looking over the endless stock, Azusa nervously admitted there was far more here than she had expected. Trying to steady herself, Azusa decided she at least needed to inspect the store properly and understand it before making any decision. But that tense inspection ended abruptly when Azusa caught movement and urgently warned Mamoru that someone had just come in. The tension tightened instantly as a male customer stepped through the entrance, and Azusa panicked at the thought of dealing with him herself. Seeing him coming from above, Azusa hurried off with one desperate thought: she had to reach the register now. Flushed and shaken, Azusa took a breath and tried to steady herself before facing him. She forced out a shaky welcome, and the customer jumped at being greeted so all of a sudden. When he asked if she was new and handed over a ticket, Azusa nervously answered that it would be 2218 yen. Then he asked if there were any more event tickets, and Azusa froze, told him to wait, and searched through the drawer until something caught her eye. Still tense, Azusa found what she needed and quietly realized she had managed not to fail, this time. She told him it seemed to be the last one, and the customer praised the shop while grumbling that he should not have underestimated it. Clearly pleased, the customer thanked her and said he was looking forward to the event. That single word stopped Azusa cold, and she repeated event in stunned confusion, as a whole new mystery opened before her. A woman outside Books Makoto noticed the lights were still on and slowed in surprise. The instant Azusa realized someone was out there, alarm shot through her and the situation all of a sudden felt serious. Mamoru called out to Azusa, and the discomfort of the scene becomes impossible to ignore. Azusa rushed over and blurted that a customer had shown up, while Mamoru instantly feared something had happened to her. Grabbing his hand, Azusa pulled Mamoru along and hurriedly explained that the shop's outside lights were still on. Then the real problem hit her: the event was next week, and she had already sold the last ticket. Mamoru understood at once and realized canceling now would not be simple anymore. Azusa panicked, insisting that if they called it off without warning, everyone involved would be thrown into chaos. She argued that she could just say Azusa Shimizu had backed out and help contact everyone herself, then demanded to know why Mamoru kept fighting her on this. Mamoru cut her off and reminded Azusa that she already knew what kind of place Books Makoto was, forcing her to face why he could not allow it. He pushed harder, telling Azusa that if she could not even understand these products, there was no way she could run the store. Azusa fired back that if she learned everything properly, no one would have grounds to complain, and decided she should wait until after the event to close the shop. Mamoru stared at her in disbelief and asked if she was really willing to go that far. In that instant, he realized her reckless sense of responsibility had exploded at the worst possible time. In his memory, his mother remarked that Azusa was probably off studying somewhere and said that was just like her, while he argued that Azusa knew nothing about this world and had no way to handle it. His mother saw straight through him and quietly pointed out that he was worried about Azusa. Sitting at the table, Mamoru tried to deny it, but his mother said Azusa was too earnest and too sheltered to be left alone with all this. She added that Azusa would be fine as long as someone dependable stayed by her side and protected her. Back in the present, Azusa stared at the adult merchandise and bluntly asked if all of it was for private use, then demanded to know what made one item different from another. She even brought a video home from the store as study material and decided to watch part of it for research, dragging Mamoru straight into the consequences of her determination. As she studied the video, blunt product talk and awkward explanations kept hitting her, and she only blushed harder while trying to grasp what customers actually wanted. Then the video became too much, and Azusa went rigid when she realized the demonstration had already gone far beyond what she was ready for. Flustered but refusing to back down, she stared at the product box and told herself she at least had to test how it worked if she wanted to keep learning. Azusa nervously switched the device on for the first time, and the scene shifts into a decision neither can easily undo. Startled by the reaction, she quietly noted that it had turned on, as if saying it aloud might stop her from panicking. A sharp scream all of a sudden tore through the apartment building, shattering the night and proving her reckless research had gone very wrong. Mamoru rushed over and saw the opened package and device on the floor, right away understanding what kind of studying Azusa had tried. When he confronted her, Azusa hurriedly explained that she had only tried the recommended settings from the guide, as if that made any of this better. Mamoru was stunned that she had actually used it, and Azusa admitted in panicked embarrassment that she had only tested it a little. Still flushed and shaken, Azusa insisted that too many of the products looked alike for her to really understand them, exposing how lost she still was despite all her effort. Red-faced, but forcing herself steady, Azusa decided that if she was really doing this, she should at least sell off the stock before closing and improve the displays with clearer product explanations. Mamoru told Azusa that if she was serious, he would help too, and urged her to tell him anything he could do so they could make the event work. Relieved, Azusa thanked Mamoru and said she knew he would understand, adding that her father would probably be happy too. Even as she said that, Azusa shyly admitted that everything had happened so, all of a sudden. Trying to move things forward, Azusa asked Mamoru to explain the differences between the products she still could not sort out on her own. But when Mamoru picked up one item, he froze at the fact that it was already open, and Azusa instantly panicked because his reaction made it sound like he thought she had done something improper. Forcing herself through the humiliation, Azusa told Mamoru to stop jumping to conclusions and demanded his honest opinion of the product, reminding him that he knew she had only tested it. Both of them flared up at once. Mamoru insisted he was just as embarrassed and would never have imagined any of this if she had not said it, while Azusa accused him of twisting everything in his head. Azusa froze when Mamoru's words proved he really had understood what she meant, and her embarrassment deepened on the spot. Worn down by the argument, Azusa admitted Mamoru was right, and the two decided to stop for the night and focus on planning the upcoming event first. The next day, Azusa and Mamoru returned to Books Makoto and picked up preparations for the event they had nearly pushed aside. Azusa flushed in confusion when the material suggested the guest might appear in an unexpectedly bold outfit, and the thought rattled her on the spot. Mamoru tried to calm things down by saying the woman would probably still be dressed normally, though even he did not sound convinced. As they checked the flyer for Rin Amane's Fan Appreciation Festival, one of them suggested using it as a reference to figure out what the event was actually supposed to look like. Azusa quickly led Mamoru toward the back, saying there was a TV and player in the staff area, eager to find out right away. Inside the hidden room, both of them were surprised by the space, and Azusa realized it could also serve as a waiting room during the event. Determined to understand everything properly, Azusa said she would try playing the video herself, while Mamoru watched with uneasy concern. The recording introduced Tenon Rin warmly to her fans, revealing the cheerful tone the event was supposed to create. Watching closely, Mamoru noted with relief that the guest was properly dressed and giving only a light greeting, while Azusa focused on the instructions for calling participants forward. But when they opened a photo album for more guidance, Azusa dismissed it at once as useless since it gave them almost no practical clue how to run the event. Azusa admitted the event was definitely happening and started listing what they still needed, including colored paper and signing pens, while Mamoru awkwardly wondered if signed DVDs might be part of it too. Trying to stay calm, Azusa said they would not know unless they looked deeper and considered calling the office for an explanation if they had to. To understand the guest better, Azusa decided they should watch some of Eri-san's work for reference. She reasoned that since she would be filling in for Startlet, it would be rude to know nothing about the performer she was supposed to handle. Though Mamoru hesitated, Azusa pushed ahead and started the disc, insisting she had to do whatever she could now. As the video began, both of them were caught off guard by Eri's presence, and Mamoru blurted out his surprise. But the footage quickly turned too intense for either of them to process calmly, leaving Azusa flustered as she admitted it was far more overwhelming than she expected. Their panic spiked when the screen warned that someone had just entered and that the store lights needed to be turned off, so Mamoru urged Azusa to get out there at once. At the front of the shop, a young woman stepped inside uncertainly and looked around in confusion. Azusa and Mamoru rushed out to meet her, both still rattled, and Azusa nervously asked who she was. Still tense from the interruption, Azusa and Mamoru learned that the young woman was Misakura Eri, and she politely apologized for arriving so all of a sudden. That visit brought them to room 32 of the Kiyomizu residence, making it clear they were now accompanying Eri on an important personal stop. With Mamoru and Azusa standing quietly behind her, Eri steadied herself and faced the room in solemn silence. At last, Eri said goodbye before the memorial, then explained that Makoto-san had helped her establish herself when she first entered the industry, making this visit deeply personal. Azusa quickly offered hospitality and invited Eri to sit for tea, while Eri flusteredly asked her not to trouble herself. Azusa gently asked whether Eri had somewhere else she needed to be afterward, trying to gauge how much time they had. Eri explained that she had just returned from an overseas shoot and came straight from the airport, which was why she was dressed so casually. Hearing that, Azusa told her that was all the more reason to relax and stay a while. Eri accepted the offer, and at last the mood loosened as they settled in together. As tea was poured, Azusa said she was glad to meet Eri, then admitted that she needed to understand the details of the upcoming event. When Azusa and Mamoru checked on Eri, they found that the long flight had completely overtaken her and she had already fallen asleep. Eri sank into the bedding with obvious relief and, exhausted enough to call it heaven, let herself fully relax. Azusa brought over her spare pajamas and apologized that they were the only ones she had. Eri hurried to apologize for troubling Azusa and blamed it on her heavy jet lag, while Azusa insisted she was glad to have company for once. After changing, Eri was surprised that the pajamas fit perfectly and innocently remarked that Azusa must have a similar build, sending Azusa into instant embarrassment. Azusa said she would turn off the lights, and Eri gently wished her good night. But once they lay side by side, Azusa realized sharing a bed with Eri was far more unexpected than she had imagined. In the dark, Eri all of a sudden asked whether Azusa and Mamoru were already close in that way, and the blunt question stunned Azusa where she lay. As Eri leaned nearer and reached toward her, she explained that she rarely got chances to talk with other women, and that Azusa might have reacted the same way if a girl like her were nearby, but Azusa firmly denied it. Flustered beyond words, Azusa called Eri exhausted and delirious and urged her to stop talking and just go to sleep already. The moment becomes awkward and difficult to ignore. Eri casually brushed that aside, and the atmosphere turns heavy with unspoken awareness. Eri then claimed she was simply too sleepy to keep talking, sounding half delirious from exhaustion. But before settling down, Eri all of a sudden noticed one of the store products and brightly praised it, while Azusa desperately begged her to stop and just go to sleep. When Eri admired Azusa for even trying to study something like that, Azusa panicked and explained that she had only brought it home to understand the merchandise. Eri calmly offered her opinion on the item, saying its design and purpose were practical even if each person would react differently, which only made Azusa burn hotter. Then Eri innocently urged Azusa to try it for herself, but Azusa recoiled and insisted she understood more than enough just from hearing about it. As Eri kept pressing that it was all part of gaining experience, Azusa shut the exchange down again with a strained goodnight. Realizing the conversation would never end otherwise, Azusa blushed, closed her eyes, and decided to pretend she had fallen asleep. Lying still in the dark, Azusa waited tensely and wondered whether Eri had finally drifted off too. Even in the dark, Azusa kept denying Eri's teasing and insisted she had only wanted product knowledge. Eri gently moved closer and tried to soothe her, saying there was nothing to be afraid of. Then, Eri teased that Azusa should not rely on a gadget, but Azusa refused at once while flushing even harder. In the next room, Mamoru all of a sudden jolted awake, startled by the tense voices and the strange mood bleeding through the wall. He lay there red-faced and frozen, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. After a strained pause, Mamoru held his head and wondered if he should just go back to sleep and pretend none of it had reached him. Before he could decide, someone called out to ask if he was awake, and he hurriedly tried to pull himself together. Azusa's mother stepped in, scolded him for making a fuss, and casually announced that she was already awake. Mamoru asked whether Azusa and her guest were still sleeping, and Azusa's mother calmly replied that there was no need to rush because they had not come down yet. Still uneasy over the night before, Mamoru looked at his phone and decided to message Azusa to see what she and Eri were doing. Worried Azusa still would not answer, Mamoru went to her room himself, telling himself he would turn back right away if she was only asleep. The moment he stepped inside, he reached for the light and called out to Azusa, and what he saw stopped him cold. Eri calmly explained that what she had brought out was something simple for beginners to understand, somehow making the whole moment even harder to survive. Without the slightest concern, Eri turned to him and casually wished Mamoru good morning, as if nothing was wrong. Azusa looked completely cornered, her face burning as she silently begged him to save her. A moment later, that suffocating tension gave way to breakfast, with everyone gathering at the table and thanking Azusa's mother for the meal. Azusa's mother served them cheerfully, and with Eri praising every bite in delight, the strained mood finally began to loosen. Still flustered, Mamoru admitted he was just happy they could all sit down and share a warm meal together again after so long. Red-faced but sincere, Azusa told Eri she was welcome anytime, then awkwardly blurted out how beautiful actresses really were. That was when Eri all of a sudden asked whether Mamoru and Azusa were really okay, and both of them jolted at once. Eri pointed out that they were both acting strangely, and while Azusa rushed to insist nothing was wrong, someone casually asked for another serving. From there, the conversation shifted back to Books Makoto, and the event that was now getting dangerously close. Eri explained that this was the very store where she had held her first event too. Looking around with open nostalgia, Eri said it had been a long time, and that Makoto-san must have been happy to see Azusa and Mamoru there as well. Eri quickly brushed that aside and said she was the one who owed Makoto-san more than she could ever repay. She recalled how thrilled she had been when so many regulars showed up for her, and said Makoto-san had arranged an event for her right after her debut. Azusa quietly realized Eri had started from a hard place too, and Eri confirmed it without hesitation. As they reviewed the event materials, Azusa grew uneasy and wondered if things had really come this far, then forced herself to drag the talk back to the event. Eri casually confirmed that yes, it really had come to that, and Azusa froze on the spot. Eri then matter-of-factly explained where the fans would line up when they entered, while Mamoru stared in surprise and Azusa listened in burning silence. With a teasing smile, Eri leaned in and boldly suggested something wildly inappropriate for the event, sending Azusa's embarrassment through the roof. Azusa turned bright red as Eri calmly went on to describe the follow-up, leaving her too stunned to even keep up. Mamoru nervously tried to stop her by asking if Eri could really say all this while Azusa could barely force out a sound. Flustered but stubborn, Azusa declared that she would do it because she had already decided to make the event succeed. Eri instantly revealed she had only been joking and reminded her it was just a normal signing event, and Azusa went rigid with humiliation. As Mamoru slumped in relief, Eri laughed at how perfect Azusa's reaction had been, and Azusa could only protest through her embarrassment. Still smiling, Eri said she was glad they both cared that much and casually asked if they had anything else to ask. Spotting a product package, Azusa asked what it was for, clearly trying to drag the conversation back to practical matters. Eri bluntly said it was a private item meant for personal use, then casually asked if Azusa wanted to try it, while Mamoru panicked at the thought she might actually agree if it did not seem too intimidating. Mamoru stared at the shelves in tense disbelief, realizing the conversation had somehow spiraled right back into dangerous territory. Cheerfully, Eri urged Azusa to try it and said she would understand right away, while Mamoru looked across the shelves and realized there were far too many products like that. As Mamoru scanned the packages, a flood of extreme labels and strange scenarios hit him at once, while Azusa desperately insisted she hated painful things and Eri assured her she would be fine and would not even need to change clothes. The packaging alone was so intense that Mamoru felt it had gone far beyond explanation. It was just absurd now. Then Mamoru noticed something else and blurted out Azusa's name in alarm. Eri right away called him out for staring, and dryly explained that Azusa had asked what a restraint item was, so she had simply answered, leaving Azusa mortified beside her. Cornered and bright red, Mamoru hastily denied picking it up out of personal interest, but Eri only teased him by asking if he liked that kind of thing too. Eri pushed the joke even further by suggesting Mamoru could help Azusa deal with it, and his strained reaction only made things worse for her. Overwhelmed and so flushed she was nearly in tears, Azusa let out a weak breath and felt Eri had gone way too far. Outside Books Makoto, Eri lightly remarked that things had really entered a new stage, and Azusa forced herself to focus by saying she had to get back to work and do her best. The scene shifted to a restaurant where Mamoru arrived with drinks in hand and politely asked if he could set them down there. The restaurant owner cheerfully noticed Mamoru had finished his deliveries and suggested he try a new dish. Mamoru eagerly agreed, saying this was his last stop and he was starving, and she happily decided to prepare some for his boss too. As she worked, Mamoru explained that Makoto-san's shop still had its lights on because they were dealing with a big event next week, and she said that sounded exactly like Azusa. A little later, she returned with steaming food, apologized for the wait, and revealed she had made xiaolongbao. Smiling proudly, she said she had fallen in love with the dish during a trip to Taiwan and felt the famous snack fit Hina's image perfectly. After Mamoru praised the flavor, she happily said customers were sure to love it and looked genuinely relieved by his reaction. Then she all of a sudden asked if he was worried about Azusa, and Mamoru stiffened, realizing it was written all over his face. She gently said she understood and reminded him that Azusa would only be there until the event was over, and Mamoru admitted he meant to help, but he could. Looking toward Books Makoto, she quietly confessed that it would hurt to see the store close down. Back at the shop, Azusa studied a DVD cover and nervously guessed it might be emphasizing the appeal of the outfit, while Mamoru awkwardly corrected her that it was probably because it was Misakura Eri's first work in that genre. Azusa tried to write a proper description for the film, but quickly realized she could not bring herself to phrase it as bluntly as the packaging did. When Mamoru tried to continue, Azusa stopped him and insisted they should call it there for the day. Once they noticed how late it had gotten, both of them had to admit they had done enough. Azusa thanked Mamoru for always staying late to help, and he told her not to worry and just get some real sleep. The night ended quietly, the two of them parting with a simple good night, but the pressure was still there. The next day at school, Azusa sat through class in a daze as the teacher droned on about migration and outside influences. When a classmate called out to Kiyomizu, Azusa jolted awake, flustered, and quick to apologize for not paying attention. The students nearby glanced at her with concern as the lesson kept moving around her. Azusa rubbed her face, looking completely drained, while someone quietly noted that she had seemed exhausted lately and that losing her father had to be weighing on her. Another girl grew even more worried and said Azusa was exactly the type who never complained, which only made it feel worse. Kiyomizu nudged Sakurai and told her she should at least show some concern too, and Sakurai awkwardly agreed. The teacher right away snapped at both girls for talking in class, and they hurriedly apologized. After school, Azusa bought soy donuts and thought they would make a nice old-fashioned sweet with honey and sugar. When she reached apartment 32 in Kiyomizu's building, Azusa hoped the donuts might help her friend relax a little. At the door, she hesitated and wondered if Kiyomizu might not even be home. Then it hit Azusa that she probably should have contacted her before showing up. Not wanting to wake Kiyomizu if she had collapsed from exhaustion, Azusa decided she would just bring the donuts to school tomorrow instead. As she turned to leave, Azusa casually thought she might rent a DVD on the way home. But then something nearby caught her eye, and she stopped dead. From the street, a voice called out after spotting Azusa together with Sakurai, instantly pulling their attention downward. Azusa looked at what she was holding and bitterly told herself that Kiyomizu had probably never noticed her at all. Then, looking down toward the street, Azusa saw Kiyomizu entering Books Makoto with a boy, and the sight hit her like a shock. Azusa stood there stunned, panic rising as she wondered again if the place really was that kind of shop. Inside, Kiyomizu calmly suggested clearing out the specialty section to make room for Misakura Eri's event, and someone asked if the items could just be moved to the back. Kiyomizu confidently took charge of that job and told Mamoru to handle the posters, and he agreed without complaint. As Mamoru put up Eri's poster, he admitted the store was finally starting to look ready for the event. Then something crashed to the floor, and Mamoru froze mid-motion. He rushed toward the sound and urgently called out to Azusa, demanding to know what had happened as she stared back in shock. Nearby on the floor, a container had burst open and spread a mess across the ground. Mamoru found Kiyomizu collapsed in the spill and panicked at once, realizing she was in real trouble. As Mamoru tried to help her, he urgently told Kiyomizu not to move, then blurted out in confusion that the spilled liquid did not even smell dangerous. Kiyomizu winced in pain, and when Mamoru checked on her, the sudden closeness between them turned painfully awkward. Outside Books Makoto, Sana hesitated at the entrance and nervously wondered if the shop was still open. Then she noticed the door was already open, and that only made her more uneasy. Sana carefully peeked through the doorway, trying to figure out what was going on inside. Hearing voices from within, she called out to ask if anyone was there. When no one stopped her, Sana decided to step inside at once. She walked in just as Mamoru was bent over Kiyomizu on the floor, and both of them froze at the worst possible moment. Staring at Sana in horror, Kiyomizu realized she had been caught, while Sana demanded to know what on earth they were doing. Blushing with equal parts anger and relief, Sana scolded Kiyomizu for making everyone worry, saying she had come because Kiyomizu looked sad and exhausted, only to find her causing chaos in a place like this. Kiyomizu urgently told Sana to wait and insisted she had completely misunderstood what she was seeing. Kiyomizu called for Sana's help, but warned her not to rush in because the floor was dangerously slippery. As Sana steadied herself, she stared at the sticky mess in shock and demanded to know what kind of situation this was. Mamoru hurriedly explained that he had panicked because he first thought the spilled liquid was kerosene, while Sana could only react in disbelief at how ridiculous that sounded. Burning with embarrassment, Kiyomizu clarified that the liquid was a personal use product, and Sana awkwardly tried to process that answer. Kiyomizu then admitted she could not go home soaked like this, so Mamoru offered to bring her a change of clothes. Sana hesitated in surprise, then asked if she could help her instead. A moment later, Sana stopped them and said she had thought of a better plan. When Mamoru checked the stock, he realized the store only had sample items left, while Sana insisted Kiyomizu should just wear one instead of complaining. Embarrassed but resigned, Kiyomizu modeled the replacement outfit and warned Mamoru not to stare, while Sana proudly declared that it looked great on her. Kiyomizu cheerfully said she was heading home, but Sana stopped her cold. There was still too much left unresolved. As they sat down with the soy donuts, Kiyomizu finally told them everything that had happened. No more dodging it now. Sana was stunned by all of it, and she complained that Kiyomizu should have told her sooner instead of shutting her out. Kiyomizu apologized and blamed the shop's theme, but Sana made one thing clear right away, that never would have pushed her away. Hearing that, Kiyomizu finally let her guard down, and Sana gently told her to lean on her whenever things got hard. Kiyomizu looked around the shop and apologized for the disaster, while Sana admitted the products actually looked surprisingly authentic. Still wearing the sample outfit without much embarrassment, Sana said she would grab something to clean the spill and warned Kiyomizu and Azusa to be careful. Left staring down the aisles, Azusa felt overwhelmed by how much strange merchandise filled the store, and Kiyomizu teased that it must have hit her hard. When Azusa picked up one item in confusion, Kiyomizu recognized it as a massager often found in hotels and casually explained that places really did sell them. With Azusa still completely lost, Kiyomizu told her to read the box, then shyly hinted it even explained how it worked. Mamoru arrived with a mop and rags, hoping that would be enough to deal with the mess. While checking one of the store devices, Azusa fumbled with it until Kiyomizu showed her how to switch it on, only for them to realize it had no power. As Azusa nervously recognized the kind of item from videos she had seen before, Kiyomizu quickly cut her off, and Sana said she had already heard more than enough. Mamoru stepped in at that exact moment, and the girls instantly fell silent. Kiyomizu teasingly asked if Sakurai wanted to try it too, but he panicked as she quickly shoved him toward the changing room. Then the day they had been dreading finally arrived, Misakura Eri's event at Books Makoto. That morning, Misakura Eri arrived cheerfully with her manager Ayame-san, while Mamoru greeted them and Azusa said she was counting on them today. As introductions began, Misakura Eri presented Ayame-san as her manager, and Ayame-san humbly said she owed everything to Misakura Eri. When they saw the signing area prepared for the release of Misakura Eri's newest film, Azusa was amazed and asked if the setup was really good enough. Pleased by the display, Misakura Eri said she had even been given her own special corner, while someone else remarked that it looked cute, almost like a variety shop. Misakura Eri praised Azusa's stylish look and natural presence, saying women would envy how effortlessly she pulled off that outfit. Azusa was shocked that Eri had apparently seen all the films, and Eri explained that she had wanted to study the cover highlights because the fronts had been left blank. Azusa admitted she had even tried asking Mamoru for an opinion, but he had been no help at all, while Mamoru could only apologize awkwardly. Eri all of a sudden hugged Azusa and thanked both her and Mamoru, promising she would give the event everything she had, as Azusa panicked that Eri's makeup might smear. Outside Books Makoto, a long line of customers had already formed, and the size of the crowd said everything. As the event was about to begin, Azusa confessed that she was getting nervous, and Mamoru pointed out that she looked even shakier than he did. Then it began, the signing event for Misakura Eri at Books Makoto. Once the fans started coming through, Eri warmly thanked one admirer for praising her new film, and eagerly asked what part had stood out most. When she heard that someone had come all the way from Hokkaido, Eri was deeply moved and happily said she could hardly believe they had traveled that far for her. Watching from nearby, Azusa felt a wave of relief seeing the event run smoothly, and Mamoru noted that the fans all looked genuinely happy. As the final guest finished, Misakura Eri asked if he was the last one, and at last, the event came to a close. With a warm smile, Eri praised everyone's effort and said they had all done a great job. Eri happily told Azusa and Mamoru that the fans' joy had made even her happy, and she thanked them both for making it happen. Then, Eri asked Azusa to come with her for a moment, pulling her attention away from the finished event. Azusa froze when something outside all of a sudden caught her eye. Outside the store, a group of supporters stood waiting with flowers and thanked Books Makoto for all its hard work. Stunned, Azusa could only stare, while even Mamoru looked on in confusion at the unexpected gathering. Eri explained that after they announced the owner's death in an online newsletter, many people said they wanted one last chance to say goodbye. She added that the late owner had always understood what fans wanted, treated them kindly, and even adjusted the store's lineup to match their needs. As the crowd called out that Books Makoto would always be their number one even if it closed, Azusa and Mamoru could only stand there speechless. Through tears, Azusa said her father in heaven would surely be happy to hear how much the crowd loved the store. In front of Books Makoto, Azusa and Mamoru bowed deeply, and Azusa said they were the ones who owed everyone thanks. As the day slowly faded into evening, the emotional farewell finally softened into something calmer. By the time darkness fully settled in, the long day had finally come to an end. Someone apologized for making even the event's star help with cleanup, but Eri brushed it off and said she had nothing else to do afterward anyway. As they left, Eri cheerfully said goodbye to Makoto-san, while Azusa and Mamoru stood beside her in gentler silence. Eri then brightly suggested stopping by a bathhouse, saying she wanted to soak in a huge tub after everything. At the bathhouse, and the emotional pressure reaches a breaking point. Surrounded by the open view, Eri marveled that scenery like this could exist in the middle of the city, and Azusa happily agreed. Finally relaxing, Azusa said she was truly glad they had been able to hold the signing event, and Eri was moved by how much love the shop had received. Smiling warmly, Misakura Eri said she was happy that Books Makoto meant so much not only to them, but to the fans as well. Eri then playfully asked if Azusa and Mamoru wanted to volunteer again, but both of them awkwardly refused at once. Even so, Azusa and Mamoru told her they were looking forward to her new film and wished her luck with the shoot. Eri happily promised that she would do her best, and for a moment the mood stayed bright and easy. Later, the scene shifted outside near the apartments as evening finally gave way to night. Beside the taxi, Eri thanked Azusa and Mamoru for seeing her off and asked them to greet Azusa's mother for her since it had gotten late. Eri then shyly asked if she could come visit again because being with the two of them had been fun, and Azusa and Mamoru gladly told her she was always welcome. As they parted for the night, Eri promised to get in touch again, while Azusa and Mamoru told her to get home safely. The taxi pulled away, and Azusa kept waving until the car vanished into the night. After a quiet pause beneath the night sky, Azusa softly called out to Mamoru, like something still remained unsaid. Azusa quietly admitted that she wanted to keep her father's store running a little longer. Mamoru accepted her decision right away and told her he had already known that would be her answer. Under the night sky, he promised to stay by her side until the very end, and that promise eased the weight in her heart. The next scene jumped to Mamoru asleep at his desk, until Azusa urgently shook him awake. Flustered but determined, Azusa explained that Eri's side had contacted her because they needed her help and could not find anyone else for the new film. Mamoru jolted in shock, while Azusa nervously asked if it was really okay, and what exactly she was supposed to do. As they topped it Drew, Azusa hesitantly suggested hiding her face, but Mamoru pointed out that the problem went far beyond that. He carefully asked whether Azusa would truly be comfortable taking part in something so personal and public with someone else, and the question stopped her cold. Azusa then recalled the bold promotional wording and fixated on the phrase amateur couple, which made her connect it directly to herself and Mamoru. That realization hit both of them at once, and Mamoru froze as the impossible implications sank in. The thought of cameras capturing something so private hit Azusa hard, and the pressure made the whole situation feel even heavier. Still flustered, Azusa tried to reason it out and suggested that if she changed her hairstyle and disguised herself, it might somehow work. Then, blushing deeply, Azusa admitted she would only even consider doing it if Mamoru were the one beside her. Her sudden confession hit Mamoru so hard that the world around him seemed to stop. Azusa repeated that she meant it, saying she could only imagine going through with it if Mamoru was with her, and the weight of those feelings became impossible to ignore. Even while accepting that possibility, Azusa anxiously worried that something might go wrong and expose how frightened and self-conscious she really was. Later, from inside a building, Mamoru nervously called out to Azusa, and she quickly answered that she was coming out. Yet the awkward tension between them still lingered. Outside on the street, the two stepped back into everyday city life, but the people around them only made their shared awkwardness feel even more exposed. Mamoru had Azusa wear a hat and glasses to stay unnoticed, but the disguise only made her stand out more, and he realized it right away. Azusa firmly rejected the idea, embarrassed that his attempt to help had only made her more noticeable. Azusa snapped that if disguising herself during filming were really that simple, Mamoru should have said so sooner, since she had already come out looking like this just to meet him. Still flustered, Azusa spotted the building they were looking for and pointed it out ahead. At the entrance, Mamoru hesitated in front of the directory, while Azusa said she would message the staff to confirm the room, just as someone opened the door and said they were finally here. The staff right away confirmed they were there for filming, then rushed them inside and pushed them to hurry because they were already late. Azusa quickly told Mamoru she would see him later, while he could only answer weakly as she was taken away. Left behind, Mamoru noticed the time and realized they had actually arrived early, which made the staff's urgency feel even stranger. Inside, the crew excitedly announced that the girl had arrived, ordered Azusa to put on a prepared outfit at once, and told her to remove the strange wig. After changing, Azusa quietly noted that the wig had been bizarre, but she felt some relief that the outfit itself at least seemed normal. Even so, Azusa uneasily realized the clothing was shorter than she had expected, and her embarrassment deepened fast. The staff told Azusa to sit on the sofa and wait for a while, and as she obeyed, she assumed Mamoru must still be getting ready somewhere else. A staff member all of a sudden announced that filming was starting, and Azusa tensed up at once. Azusa nervously asked if she was supposed to begin alone, and the staff casually told her this was only the first scene. The staff said it might be Azusa's first time on camera, and the moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult. The camera was raised and the crew decided to start with an interview. Once recording began, the interviewer awkwardly corrected a badly phrased question, leaving Azusa confused and embarrassed by what they were really asking. When the interviewer pressed whether this was truly her first experience, Azusa shyly admitted that it was. The questioning continued, and when Azusa was asked how she felt, the fear on her face made it clear she was overwhelmed. Then the staff showed her an object and asked if she had ever used one before, and Azusa jolted at the sudden turn. Elsewhere, Mamoru sat waiting alone, unable to shake the feeling that Azusa might not be alright. Just then, Mamoru got a call from Misakura Eri, who said she could not reach Azusa, and the moment he explained that Azusa had already gone into the studio, her alarmed reaction changed everything. Misakura Eri urgently told Mamoru something was very wrong. The day's filming had already been postponed, and the words hit him like a blow. Inside the studio, Azusa nervously admitted the item looked like one she had only seen before, even though she still had no idea why they were asking her that. When the staff told Azusa to try it right there, she jerked back in shock and demanded to know why she had to do that now. Panic closed in on Azusa as she realized no one had warned her she would be made to deal with something like this alone, and she had no idea what to do. The staff coldly told Azusa she did not need to change for it, but that only left her frozen between confusion and shame. Even while trembling, Azusa forced herself to endure it, believing that if she ran now, she would never be able to face the promised scene with Mamoru. As the camera kept rolling, the crew praised her, then pressed her to remove more layers from the outfit, and despite the fear on her face, Azusa weakly tried to obey. At that exact moment, Mamoru and Misakura Eri burst into the room and shouted Azusa's name, cutting the scene off before it could go any further. The instant she saw them, Azusa turned toward Mamoru in pure relief, while the staff visibly panicked at the sight of Eri. Chaos swallowed the room as someone tried to dismiss it all as a simple mix-up with a new girl, but Azusa and Mamoru were already too shaken for that excuse to work. Outside the studio, Misakura Eri apologized and admitted she had honestly believed Azusa and Mamoru were the pair meant for her shoot, leaving Azusa stunned that the entire disaster had started there. Flushing hard, Azusa asked what kind of shoot Eri thought they had been joining, still trying to piece together what had just happened. Standing beside Mamoru, Azusa shyly confessed she had assumed it was a new couple project involving the two of them, and the admission left them both frozen. Eri looked back in surprise, and her explanation all of a sudden made everything clear to her. Then Eri burst out laughing at how innocent the misunderstanding was, while Azusa protested through her embarrassment and Mamoru still could not recover. Eri explained that flu season had taken out her usual performers, and even the director got sick, so after the shoot was delayed, she had planned to ask Azusa and Mamoru to fill in. Mamoru quickly realized the whole nightmare had begun with Azusa misunderstanding Eri's invitation, and Azusa quietly admitted that was exactly it. Still teasing them, Eri apologized for not letting Mamoru be there for Azusa's first filming experience, and the comment only made Mamoru burn even redder. With a bright smile, Adi promised she would teach them properly next time and send the address, leaving Azusa and Mamoru reeling at how casually she said it. Standing outside the building in shock, Azusa firmly insisted she would not be performing, even if her voice sounded far less certain than she wanted. As they walked through the city, still red from the misunderstanding, Azusa admitted the whole thing had been unbearably embarrassing, and Mamoru confessed they had completely misread it. Even so, Azusa had to admit to herself that she had worked hard to prepare for it. Mamoru, just as red-faced, silently admitted he had done the very same. They kept walking side by side in strange silence, until something ahead stopped them cold. The moment they noticed the hotel sign beside them, both of them froze and stared at it in stunned embarrassment. Azusa instantly panicked and blurted out that they were still in high school and could not do something like that, only to realize Mamoru had not suggested anything at all. As Azusa hurriedly tried to leave, Mamoru foolishly wondered if that meant things might be different after graduation, making everything even worse. Azusa instantly demanded to know what on earth he was thinking, and Mamoru desperately insisted he was not thinking anything at all.